Welcome to The Naked Truth. And now, your host, Bridget Barclay.
Good evening and good morning to absolutely everybody that is listening and tuning in to The Naked Truth. My guest is Steve Aspin. This is going to be part 2. And it is regarding his book called Out of Time. So I'm just going to give you a little gentle intro. Steve's book is a deep personal account exploring Steve's long-time experiences with the unexplained phenomena, particularly UFO encounters and abductions. It's not just about sharing the stories, but it's about trying to make sense of what's happened to him over the decades. He's offering a first-hand look into the emotional and psychological toll of these experiences that it has had on him. Steve dives into a broader content of the UFO phenomena, drawing connections between his personal experiences and a wider pattern reported with other experiences. This reflects on the cultural, historical, and scientific implications, of these events, providing a broader commentary of what might be happening to us and why. One of the core themes of this explanation is what it means to be an experiencer. Steve delves into the nature of these accounts and encounters and the trauma that it often leaves behind, and the challenges of sharing such experiences in a world that can be skeptical or dismissive. But that's going to be for part 3. So we are part 2. Steve Aspin, are you here, please?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Steve. Nice to see you back.
You too.
All right.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, right. Part 1 was last week. So this is going to be our part 2. And it is about your book, Out of Time. I have read a little bit more. Not as much as I should have done, but this is for you to have the time now to draw in people, skeptics and non-skeptics and experiences into our circle of trust, and your reflections and your experiences regarding them. So let's start with last week. We were talking about the scars and we were talking about implants. Would you like to continue from there onwards?
Yeah, sure. We talked about some hair recovered from an abduction event. Just a quick word about that. The hair samples we discovered in our house and on the patio outside on the other side of the garden doors, what my wife discovered the day after the event, were sent to Microtrace LLC in Illinois, and they also had a hair to analyze from another abductee in California. I don't know this abductee, but the hair she had was longer than the 2 we found in our house, and it was brown. And they turned out to be similar in some respects, but radically different in the obvious respect that 2 were blonde, light colored, and 1 was already dyed.
Okay.
Because it was dyed brown. So the full analysis of these hairs and what they actually are, and and how we can prove what they are, is in the book. But I won't spoil it for people if they haven't read that chapter, because that's really interesting.
So when you say dyed, as in it had been dyed, the hair had been dyed. So like if I dyed my hair brown, it had been dyed.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Interesting, because if we go back to part 1, one of the beings that you had seen did have brown hair, and then also you had another being that you had seen that had white hair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's so the other thing that it pertains to the physical evidence is the implants that we find that abductees sometimes find, or medical professionals find on X-rays, that these implants, if those members of your audience who are very into this subject will probably know that they do vary somewhat in the location that they're placed and in what they look like. Some of them are like spiral like springs, some of them are like rods, and some of them are like little seeds, seed-shaped things. They're put in the olfactory, where the olfactory nerve enters the brain through the cribriform plate, just here, or sometimes in the ears, which are accessed, through the snodonal sinuses. Passages, yeah.
In what you said about scoop marks, that basically that they could be taking our tissue samples and then coating it around the implant, so then it isn't it acts as like an anti-inflammatory that it wouldn't reject. And I hadn't thought about that until after you said it.
Well, we haven't definitively proved that, but Whitley Strieber and I both came to that when we were discussing it about a year ago. Makes and he was staying here with us in Lincolnshire a couple of weeks, about the middle of September.
When we all met up at Hull. We all met up at Hull.
Yeah. Whitley came back out after that, and we continued that discussion. So when you get a little splinter in your tissue, like in your finger, if you're chopping wood or something, or working with wood, sometimes you get a little splinter in your finger, and if you don't get it out, or you find it difficult to remove it, the skin gets inflamed. So after a day, at most a day, it turns tender, it goes red, it swells up a little bit, and it gets really, really tender, really sore. That's your immune system, body's immune system, responding to the presence of a foreign object, trying to isolate it and eject it from the body. With these implants, sometimes about the size of like wheat seeds, or even smaller, and they are found in the tissue, beneath the surface of the skin, beneath the epidermis, in the tissue somewhere, and there's never any inflammatory response to them. So that means that the body does not recognize it as a foreign object. It does not recognize it as a hostile invader, and it doesn't try and eject it. And the only reason the body's immune system would have that response, or lack of response, is if the body's immune system, the T cells, recognize the object as part of its own cellular structure. And one of the things that abductees often report, and that they've been photographed and sampled many, many times, is these scoop mark scars. Abductees find them after abduction events, and they never completely heal because they're quite deep. They're quite deep. Yeah. And we showed one last week in the previous podcast. Yeah. But there's many examples of these photographed over the years in the books. So what we think is they use the tissue from these scoop marks, which they take. It's obviously the intention is to take a tissue sample.
Well, they can take any tissue sample from what they doing to us, whether it be internal, anything.
Yeah. But they take a chunk of your physical flesh off from the surface, which is odd. Yeah. They usually take it from an area like the back of the shoulder, or the back of the knee, or the back of the thighs, where abductees routinely don't look.
Well, that's what we spoke about last week. Because, mine's literally on the side of my thigh, and it is literally like you've got your finger and you've literally scooped it. And I do recall the incident when I was 6, 7.
Well, the reason we speculated about this for years and years as to why they would do this, what they wanted the sample tissue for, so much of it, not just a little group of cells which you could get with a little spatula or a syringe. We think it's possible that they use the tissue, or they replicate the tissue, or clone it, or use some technique like PCR. polymerase chain reaction to reproduce the cells in some way to coat these implants so that the body doesn't recognize it as foreign and doesn't reject it, doesn't try and eject it from the tissues. So that makes a lot of sense to me, and Whitley thinks that, and I think that. And
can I ask then, is there anything that you haven't explored then that you wanted to put into the book to do with medical, anything medical?
There probably is many things I haven't explored, but I went with the things that I'd investigated and looked at, and we've had tested and analyzed, forensically analyzed at the different laboratories, and the results of those analyses are all in the book, or particularly in the appendices, but they're summarized and woven into the story, and particularly in chapter 4, which is called physical evidence. But
I mean you can be open-minded and you can be skeptical, but if the evidence is there, and the fact that you've gone to you've literally, I mean, it's like a mad person in many ways, that you have to explore all of the avenues, don't you? I mean, you do, you have to, for your own personal madness sort of Richter scale, you have to make sure that you go and work with the best of the best people. You have to make sure that you go and work with the laboratories. You have to make sure that you connect with all of the right people. Because
I mean, you go to the level that you can reach, and to people who have got the time and expertise to work with you, and there's not many people are available to do that. I mean, I'd really like to get to know Gary Nolan a lot better, and because he's immersed in this at a very high level, and he's got electron microscopy and everything. The implant that's analyzed in the book was a excuse me, I'll just try and get it. It is a little seed-shaped thing that was removed by Roger Lear in a.
I was going to ask you about Roger. Yeah. So when did you go over to see Roger then? No,
I'd met him at Gaithersburg at a conference in 2009 and again in 2010. Okay. Stephen Bassett used to put a big conference on in the Gaithersburg Hilton Hotel. In those years, he doesn't do that anymore because each time he spent 20 grand up front, and it was getting expensive. Roger used to attend those. He was extracting implants from abductees from 1995 for 19 years until 2014 when he died. He died at just a couple of weeks shy of his 80th birthday in 2014. But in 2009, he removed this implant from a guy called Steve Colburn. There's a pseudonym used in the paper, but his Colburn's company is called Dark Star Nanotechnology LLC, and they're based in Southern California, and they've got a ton of really high-tech equipment like electron microscopy, which electron microscopes are north of $1 million for a good one, and he uses electron microscopy and a number of other very high-tech procedures to analyze this thing.
And because they do dissolve, don't they? That once they're taken out, lots of things can actually apparently happen, Roger.
This particular one, I haven't got a detailed analysis of another in the book. This particular one emitted radio waves in sort of 3 separate frequency bands.
That's crazy. It sounds right, though. That's exactly why we have the implants.
Well, in the hertz, megahertz, and kilohertz.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
The thing is, when they're removed from the abductee, within about 14 days, they stop sending radio waves. They just stop. And rather in the body, they're always doing it. So there's something about when they're removed from bodily tissue, they know that they're removed or they're switched off somehow, because they stop emitting the radio waves. The shell is woven.
We've dropped our tracker.
Well, exactly. Yeah. What
Yeah.
happened to me in 2022 when I got rid of this one up there. I just really sneezed it and coughed it out really violently, and it just came out. And then I snorted it down because I had quite a heavy cold, and something stuck in the back of your nose, which is not quite in your lungs. It just in those tracheal passages. And I just coughed it out with a really gentle, which is on the side of the wash basin. And it was a great big blood clot with a dot, like a seed in the middle. And I had a mania to flush it down with loads and loads of water. And it went into the septic tank. This is something that I actually took leave of my senses for the time. But a lot of people have said this when they eject these things or when they cough them out, which they very occasionally do. Maybe they only do it once in a lifetime. They have an insane compulsion, an urgent compulsion to get rid of it, to flush it down the toilet into the sewage system. And I can only think that they have been
will do that, I should
told
imagine.
to do that in advance, that if you ever cough it out, get rid of it. And this is implanted in your mind as something you should do. But this particular one, it's went in the septic tank. They obviously realized at some point within the 1 or 2 weeks.
Can I say a pun? Shit happens. Sorry. Sorry. I couldn't resist that one.
They obviously realized
Yeah.
that it hadn't, it stopped transmitting for some reason. So they replaced it about a month. It was about 8 weeks after rejection that another abduction followed, and I knew they replaced it because the first time the blood was coming down both nostrils for about 24 hours, only very gently after the first hour or two, but it was nevertheless, you could could roll a piece of tissue paper up and stick it up and get them bloody on both sides, and it was fine for 8 weeks, and then they replaced it, and I know they replaced it because of I could feel it. And I could feel that the nostrils were bleeding again, and it was obvious that they put it back. So they knew that the thing had been ejected, and they decided to put it back.
Right.
Or a new one. Yeah.
Let's go back to you said you know that they put it back. What do you remember about them putting it back? What was set the scene? What do you remember? How you went to bed? How you woke up?
Yeah. Well, how I woke up, I could. Okay. I knew I had a real pain in this top of the nasal pharynx where the cribriform plate. It's where the olfactory nerve goes into the brain through the cribriform plate. And
I don't think I've got that part of my brain.
Oh, you have it. You have it, Bridget. You have it. You're human. You're going to have it. So I was feeling quite irritable because this is often happens when I wake up after an abduction, and I had the nose that just felt really sore. And just as an experiment, I took a piece of tissue paper and rolled it up into a little pointy thing, and I just pushed it up gently, and there's blood on it. And I inverted it, and so the clean end was up, and I pushed it on the other side, and it was bloody too, and it bled for most of the day. So somebody had been operating on this area overnight, and something was put there.
Well, I remember having nosebleeds as a child.
Yeah.
I don't remember having them so much as I got older. I've never really looked into. Me and Roger, I got to meet Roger a few times.
Yeah.
And we spoke about something that I may have, but I've looked into it since on my leg, and it isn't. That doesn't mean to say that I don't have anything in me. I mean, I totally get what you mean about the different frequencies as a transmitter, because I hear those frequencies all bloody day. So I should imagine I've got them and north, south, east, and west going on. Because
do you have the ringing in the ears once a day?
Oh yeah, I've got them, both ears. Yeah.
So are they different pitches?
No, it's yeah, they can change frequency, so they can get really right. Okay, so I have one that's I can hear now, even with earphones on. I can hear it. It's a very high pitched frequency, or then I can get one that will just mainly go into this ear. The other day, sitting down on the sofa, all of a sudden it was just like this big woo, go straight into my ear out of absolutely nowhere. Then this total high pitched noise, to the point of I do suffer from tinnitus, but now the more I think about it, the more of sort of like everyone's having this huge awakening within the sort of experiences, daily life. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to listen more to it. It used to annoy the hell out of me. It doesn't annoy me now. I actually accept it, and I actually quite like it. Oh my God. So, it's like ringing really loud in this one right now. It's like, oh! But I kind of like it. So whatever it's doing, I'm just going with it. It's nothing. It's not upsetting me. It doesn't disrupt my day. I mean, so yeah. I mean, also it could be a hormonal thing. I'm at that age, when they put that down, they put it down to the hormonal thing as well, but they can put it down to lots of things, working with heavy machinery, blah, blah, blah. But
tinnitus classically is when you're exposed to a loud noise for a long period of time, like an occupational thing where you're working with noisy machinery or
music industry.
Again, yes, the music industry. People who spend a lot of time on stage with very powerful amplifiers. You sometimes get it.
I like
it. You've got tinnitus, it's very, very difficult to get rid of it.
Exactly. I actually really like it. It's a part of my life, and I really enjoy having it. If it didn't, then it would be, I would miss it actually. So something obviously very positive is going on somewhere there. So
to come back to the shells of these things, they're the one that is analysed in the book was at a shell woven of hemosiderin, protein coagulum, and keratin. Keratin, as most of your audience will know, is the main constituent of hair and nails, and you don't really find it deep inside the body. The hair and nails grow quite close to the surface, and they grow outwards. So that's what keratin is, and it's the only place it's found in the human body is in the hair and nails. Hemosiderin assists in the body's clotting mechanism. It works with the body's thrombocytes, and protein coagulum is to do with tissue respiration. Again, it's a lifeblood ingredient. So these three materials are woven together in a kind of matrix around the core of this thing. So I suspect that these are taken from the abductee with a scoop mark tissue and woven in some way. I mean, they've got obviously get sophisticated genetic engineering to make this implant immune to ejection from the body's immune system. So it's to kind of fool the body into thinking this is its own organ, its own tissue, its own.
So can I ask then, on a personal level then, because I have to because it is personal, when you are about to experience something, do you have a build up to the situation? I certainly do. Do you have a build up to the situation?
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I just get surprised, and by the following morning, and I woke up 2 years ago in October with and I felt really something weird was going on, and I felt my hand, this part of the thumb, was wet, and the room was really dark. So I got up out of bed, went into the kitchen, which is just next door, and there's one of those triangular 3 dots in an equilateral triangle. That you've got something similar to that.
Yeah,
I'm you somewhere. It was on the thumb.
It's gone now. I did have it when I had the experience.
And it bled and I didn't have a presence of mind because I was really dozing, really sleepy. Yeah. And I thought, what the hell's that? You can't get 3 precisely spaced equilateral points, puncture points when you're sleeping in bed with a soft mattress. It was just not possible.
Exactly.
So I didn't have a presence of mind to photograph, and by the time I remembered or kind of thought I should have photographed it, and it scabmed over, and it was on one triangular scab had formed over it. So there are indicators like that, but I just feel the next day that I didn't sleep as well as I should have done, and I feel kind of irritable, and my wife Janice,
well, it's the irritable. She
spots it straight away.
Yeah. Well, the white Janice would.
She says, "Did you have something happen last night?" I say, "I have no idea."
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah. Well, yes.
So,
I mean, well, it's because your mind is elsewhere. That's why. Your mind's elsewhere, trying to calculate everything, can do a sort of like a Columbo, sort of like returning to the scene of the crime, so to speak, like what could have happened? Okay, so then is there anything sort of quite challenging that you thought that writing the book?
Can I just go through this again, because it's kind of interesting. Apart from the shells, there's nerve proprioceptors sticking out of this device. That they're things that are only normally happen in the proprioceptors. They're found in the fingertips, in the mouth and lips area, and in the genitals. They're where they've got hypersensitive. So in these little objects, the nerve proprioceptors are living parts of the cells that are somehow integrated into it. So that means they're there to be highly sensitive to stuff from inside the body, because the implant is inside the body. There was a core of iron, nickel, and a whole host of other things, including gold, silver, and platinum, and iridium, which is even rarer than platinum. It's very rarely found. So if these little elements, I think there's 9 different elements in this tiny little thing, which is why would they engineer 9 different elements in it? Or is it just some kind of
quite interesting that let's call them beings. Okay, it's quite interesting that they're very, very interested in what we have on this planet. They're very interesting in what we mine. They're very interesting in places where we quarry, or where we mine, and a lot of the sightings are seen there. So also as in one of Preston Dennett's podcasts on his channel on YouTube, graveyards as well. UFOs and beings have been seen in graveyards, which people are buried with all of their gold and various things. So
I've never thought of that, particularly if you're a Viking. Maybe not so much nowadays.
well, God knows what's underneath England, Ireland, and Scotland's. Not America at the moment, but actually some of America, but England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. What's underneath us. But there's loads of reports of them over graveyards, which I found totally fascinating. And when you sort of kind of put all the pieces together, you think, oh my God, that kind of makes sense. Which is all the factors of all of the metals. Basically,
it's possible that might even be something to do with the afterlife, with the spirits hanging around, hanging around the location after they've departed. I don't know. It's a whole.
They're UFO sightings. People are reporting UFO sightings at graveyards and beings at graveyards going over graves.
Yeah.
I'll send you that link on the episode. It's absolutely fascinating. So is there anything else to finish off with the implant?
Well, there is one more thing. That
have you had that x-rayed now again? Now you said that you've had it put back in. Have you?
No.
Okay. You don't want to look into that?
It's not that I don't want to. There's reasons for it. It's to the National Health Service and getting your GP to recognise that it's a thing that they should be concerned about.
Well,
to get an X-ray.
There is avenues that have opened up now for people, with trauma for it. I can put a link via. I don't know all the references to it now.
That would be interesting, not just for me, but potentially for many members of the audience.
Oh yeah, no, totally, yeah. It's something
many
coalition. Ted Rowe put it together. There's quite a few people involved. He's got lots of medical people. So if you're traumatized by something, then you can go UAP.
Is it the UAP Medical Coalition or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah. So
I know, I was interviewed by somebody at the European Medical Coalition about 6 months ago. Somebody called Debbie, and Ron Westrom put me onto them, or put them onto me.
Yeah.
So I have.
I think it's a fantastic thing. So it's a fantastic thing to be brought into the medical field. But I know that when I came back from America and my hair was falling out, and my doctor, I told him that I'd had a very close UFO encounter, and he, my medication was for radiation, and it's on my medical records. If anything that happened to me out. So I've openly talked about my encounters to my doctor.
So high levels of radiation were actually measured, what, with a Gauss meter or something, or a?
I don't. I was being treated for it medically. I remember being given tablets for it. I was also going through a lot of headaches as well. That's one thing I did suffer as I was having my abductions in Exeter, was horrendous headaches. So I wasn't getting the nosebleeds that I remember, but I was getting the headaches. The headaches would just literally shut me off. And not make me think, and then boom, then I'd have another encounter. It was to kind of slow me down and not to remember right yet at that moment in time what I wanted to remember. They weren't allowing me to remember until future date. But so people, in your list of, are you an experiencer in your book, there are other factors that we don't tick all of the boxes, and yet then there'll be someone that will come out with something totally different, and we have to absolutely say, you know what, okay, fair enough, because there are some encounters out there that are just absolutely off the Richter scale, and you just think, all of our encounters are so different, so someone else is going to come in with something very peculiar, but then more people might follow. With that type of encounter.
The only other thing about this this implant analysis is that the isotopic values of the substances, that the metals were non-terrestrial. Now, most of your audience, if they've got like grade level science education, will know what an isotopic ratio is.
They all have.
Well, each element in the periodic table has a set number of neutrons and a corresponding identical number of electrons, but a set number of protons, and the number of electrons are identical to the number of protons. But what varies is the number of neutrons in the atomic nucleus, and that terrestrial iron, as an example, has a certain number of neutrons in its nucleus, and terrestrial nickel has a certain number of neutrons. Whereas the proton values are always the same. The number of neutrons can vary according to whether they're endemic to this planet, the Earth, or they've landed in meteorites, where meteoric analysis usually reveals.
Well, you can age a meteorite, can't you?
Yeah, but the age is less important than the isotopic ratios, because they're different. If you have iron from an iron, predominantly iron nickel meteorite, the iron is very different to terrestrial iron, and the only way you can tell the difference. Well, the way you can tell the difference is in the isotopic ratios in the nucleus, and all these things in this implants these materials in the implants had isotopic ratios that were non-terrestrial, all of them. So you have to say they originate from somewhere else. They don't originate on Earth. There's no possible way that they could originate on Earth. Okay. The substances, gold with a different isotopic ratio to terrestrial gold is still gold, but it's might be heavier or lighter
Yeah, the difference between 9 carat and 18 carat, you know.
Well, yes, it's to do with the atomic weight. So the atomic weight, you know, I mean, obviously lead is, you know, one of the densest materials we have, but nonetheless, the isotopic ratios vary, and some lead, you know, is not so dense as other lead, you know, depending on its origin. And sometimes, really now cosmologists can say that if this substance has an isotopic ratio of, you know, 6 as an example, rather than 8 or 9, it comes from a different part of the galaxy. But people say you only a part of the galaxy with regular supernovae could produce this material. And these materials in this implants were non-terrestrial, demonstrably non-terrestrial. So that kicks the thing right into touch, the idea that they're just pieces of glass or
so
contamination.
Just in context, this is in your book, but this isn't about your implant. This is because your implant.
This one is not. But
this is what Roger Lear's.
I had to go to Dark Star Nanotechnology and you know, talk to Steve Colburn about this, and you know, so
Alien in the Scalpel. That's it. That's what Roger's book was, wasn't it? Alien in the Scalpel.
The aliens and the scalpel.
Scalpel. That's right. I do have it.
Yeah.
Roger, kindly find it.
It was originally published by National Institute of Discovery Science, Bob Bigelow's organization in the 1990s. Yeah. Excuse me.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Anyway. I didn't know that Roger was friends with Bob. Okay.
He and Daryl Sims were invited to the NIS headquarters by John Alexander, who was working with Bob Bigelow at the time. Okay. Yeah. This is before Bigelow. This is before Bigelow bought the Skinwalker Ranch, and
he was highly involved back then. Anyway, way before he bought Skinwalker Ranch. Sure. Okay, so off topic of implants, because we want people to be able to sleep at night, and anyone that has a nosebleed can't always just to say, hang on a minute, this is I've been abducted, because it could be just for medical reasons. In your book, you talk about all the different factors of maybe being an experiencer. Now, when you started, you know, obviously you had an encounter as a child. We spoke about in chapter 1. We spoke about in part 1. It was about you waking up very early on a Sunday morning, totally out of. You shouldn't have been doing it, because it was your one lie-in on a bike to a building.
It was a Saturday.
Being built. Oh, was it a Saturday? Sorry, I thought Sunday. On a Saturday to a building, a disused building that was being built, and then you saw a craft at the window. So can I ask then, any other encounters that you have had that you recollect, that you just, or is there, and actually, no, I'm going to change that question. Is there anything that has happened in any of your encounters that you just, I mean, because I've got a couple that you just think, I don't know about this. It's just it doesn't fit into a category. You know, it's absolute high strangeness. You know, it's something to do with upstairs, but it's just totally thrown you, you know, mentally.
Something to do with upstairs, yeah.
Well, them upstairs. We're not talking past loved ones now. We're talking, but saying that, I do believe, and I had this private conversation with you, I do believe that they are all connected. Our past ones that pass away do assist with other beings. Now, whether everyone's going to say, Bridget, you're absolutely off your frigging rocker. No, I totally believe that once they pass away, they are all on that realm as well, that they can interact with beings as well. Our parents and our family do. So, you know, that have passed away. So I'm totally on that wavelength. But is there anything that I've digressed. Is there anything that you have had experienced and you just thought, you know what? I haven't got a clue. You've scratched your head and you've trying to work it out still.
I don't know. Maybe there is. I've got to think about that, and I may not be able to answer with it within a minute or two. I've got to think about it deeply. What I've recorded in Out of Time was in the chapter 1, which is quite long, is a series of standout experiences from infancy to adulthood where they ought to have taught me that this was going on. What was responsible for all the weirdness was this phenomenon. And I
so we'll bring it in that it is family related as well. It's your mum and your grandma as well. So yeah,
definitely.
Let's go back to that,
when excuse me, when I was
cough out that implant.
in 2006, I took a business trip to Sardinia, and I took my girlfriend with me at the time, and a business partner from Holland was with us. We were meeting a supplier in a town in southwestern Sardinia called Iglesias, which means churches in English. And we had a rental car, and we drove it up to a town called Bosa, near the air where my business colleague had a flight back to Amsterdam the next morning. And we got there quite late in the evening, about 11:45, and we turned in, and I woke up. We'd agreed to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning because we had to leave to get my business partner to his Amsterdam flight, and the only way he could get there was in the rental car. So we were going to take him. I woke up at 7:30. That's half an hour after we'd agreed to our alarm clocks had been set, and we'd agreed to get up. Nobody really could understand why we hadn't heard the alarm clocks or they hadn't worked. I woke up to see right in front of me in the hotel room 2 small grey aliens, and between the two of these aliens, one of them had a kind of thing in its hand that looked like a letter H thing, like about the width, like a wire, of H-shaped, long, thin H-shaped.
Like you're going to do cattle, like you're going to burn cattle at the end.
Well, yeah, it looked more like an exotic car aerial from the 1970s, and instead of one, the telescopic.
I thought you had to pull those up back in the 70s.
But that's what it was in hand, and the other alien, it didn't have anything in his hand. So between these two was my father, and I thought, because he died 3 years earlier, I thought he was probably. I was seeing a vision of him that coming back to say everything's fine, Steve. No worry. Where I am is fine. What I found very difficult to grasp at the time was these ugly, bug-eyed aliens, because I'd not really acknowledged the abduction. The abduction thing was, the phenomenon was happening to me at that time, and I really ought to have, because I didn't look into it that much. I really ought to have twigged it, and I did work it out within a year of this incident. But and he said to me, this image of my dad, he said to me, "It's time to go, Steve." And it was only much later, when I got to know David Jacobs and we were working together, he said, "Oh, that's what they always say when they want to say goodbye to you. They always say it's time to go." Well,
that's what you say politely when you are leaving somewhere, anyway. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so, kind of they've got that from us.
What happened was, there was a kind of shimmering, and the room was quite dark, but it wasn't completely dark because the sun was actually up, because it was in Sardinia in I think it was in May, so it's light, quite early. I've been to Sardinia, it's beautiful. Yeah, but at that time in the morning, I think the sun had been up for a couple of hours, and so we were in a hotel room with curtains, not full-length blinds, as far as I remember. Anyway, the sun was coming in, kind of, so I could see these creatures, and they were clear as day, right in front of me, about 2 meters away. These two of them, and my dad was in the middle. And what I couldn't make any sense of was, if this is an afterworld visitation, this is me seeing into the afterworld. Yeah. What are those bug-eyed creatures doing there? Are they with us? When we die, do we all go into the same place as other extraterrestrial life forms?
This is our debate that we spoke about the other day. I gave you some references that are personal that I did tell you. Yeah. But also, if you remember, when we were at Hull,
Yeah.
Whitley was talking about his encounter, and he was
you're talking for your audience. You're talking about the OLM conference in September this year.
Yeah, the whole conference that we all met up at. So Whitley was on stage and he was talking about an encounter with a moth. The moth and Anne. It had it was related to his wife Anne.
Yeah.
Now, and he actually said the same thing, and I couldn't stop clapping. I was the only one that clapped. It was totally silent because I totally agreed with him. Like what I've just said earlier on the podcast, I know that our past ones are totally connected to them upstairs. Totally. It's just a way, like you said, that your dad was there. Now, we could talk screen memories. You know, it could be that's to you know, calm you down. You're seeing someone there that's familiar to you in the midst of something extraordinary. But even though it isn't extraordinary because you've had these encounters before, you know, it's sort of like it just calms you down that little bit more. Or it was your father that is there because he, you know, it goes back on the vibration again of and frequency. You know, I totally believe it is connected. They are connected, past loved ones with beings that they do assist in something as well. Not that I've heard of any stories that when people go to craft and they see their family up there, I haven't heard that, but I do believe that them that have passed, there's an energetic sort of energetic. What's the word I want to word? An energetic sort of I can't think of the word. Just an energetic sort of compatibility that they just assist together with us. Because I know that I've had experienced that with them, with my parents passing away and beings as well. Very clever. And then let's do a spinal tap. You know, like let's change it to 11 now because it's like if it wasn't high strangeness then it's bloody is now. You put your parents involved.
It goes up to 11.
Yeah. Love that film. Yeah, it is what goes up to 11. Yeah, it is lovely. So as a personal, because we haven't got long, we have like 7 minutes left. Personal a personal view of like your involvement in this. Where do you see yourself going now? Do you want to do conferences? Do you want to do another book?
Yeah, well, I'm involved in writing a second book with a molecular biologist from Germany, the university doctorate there in Germany, who was making a substantial contribution to it, and we're going to be co-authors. And I think this book will appear in 2025.
Okay.
But after that, I don't know. I mean, I've been invited to speak at a number of places, including the Women's Institute, you know, which is...
I know. I think that's fabulous. Oh, you've got to put your little story in about your neighbour that came up to your house. You've got to say that. That's a fantastic little story.
Yeah, I was... he's a substantial landowner with a big acreage of farm.
6 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was chatting to him over the garden fence one day, and he said, Steve, I heard you've written a book about aliens. And I said, yeah, do you want to have a copy? Oh yeah, I'd like to read that. So I gave it to him. I loaned it to him, you know, and about 3 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Janice wasn't here actually. She'd gone to the monastery in Hertfordshire. So I was there on my own with the dog. And this guy came and rang the doorbell. And I said, oh, it's Charles. Excuse me, shouldn't mention his name. And I opened the door, and he said, can I come in? I said, yeah, sure. And he's holding a book in his hand. He's put it down the kitchen table. He said,
this is
now I want to ask you about this. Yeah. I said, these human-looking ones, I don't really see that how that works, you know. So we had this long dialogue about the hybrid program with a farmer in Lincolnshire, and I had no idea he was interested in this subject at all. And
well, the thing is, you don't have to be interested. You've just got to have one spark of intellect to think. And hang on a minute.
He'd always been interested in UFOs as a anomalous phenomenon, you know.
But
he said since agricultural college, because when you're dealing with farmers who are out and about early and late and in all hours and weathers,
Exactly.
They see things, they see
Absolutely.
things that other people don't necessarily see because they're indoors all the time,
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But what's really nice is because people are just generally interested, because it's the neighbour, whether it's to go back to the local ladies or the in the pub, the gossip. But you're actually having a intellectual point of view backwards and forth with someone over the coffee table, in quaint little English little village, which is great. That's what you need.
About 15 months ago, Janice and I visited a woman I've dealt with for 15 years in the finance sector. When I had my business, she was helping me sort out the finances. And I went there and we sat in the kitchen. She's semi-retired. She's not even 40 yet. And I got my copy of Out of Time out and I said, I'd like to have this. This is what I've been doing with myself the last few years.
Yep.
And she said, she looked at it and she looked at the back cover and she looked through it and she looked at me and said, I wish you'd told me about this when we were working together all those years. We could have had such interesting conversations. I never knew you were into this stuff. So
you just don't know.
But the most surprising people respond very positively,
they do.
to this subject because they're really intrigued by it.
More so now. It wasn't 20, 30 years ago, like I've always said last that.
People kind of think it's okay.
We're quite trendy now, Steve. We're quite trendy.
Perish the thought, Bridget. Perish the thought.
All right. They'll all be running to us, picking up the phone. Can I ask you a question? Yeah, it's like, hang on a second. Join the list of questions to ask. We haven't got the answers, have we? We just can only go by our experiences. Right, we have 3 minutes left. Yeah, 3 minutes left. So just actually give us a overview of your book, and I just say it's for the more open-minded approach to the UFO phenomena. It's great for skeptics and also for the experiencers to consider reading as well, because I know for me it stirred up a lot of things for me.
It's an analysis of the abduction phenomenon, what it is. And I've tried to describe what it is, taking it outside just my experiences, what is actually going on.
We've got 1 minute.
So it's an analysis of the abduction phenomenon, what I think it's all about, including how many abductees in the population, why they're doing, what the intergenerational component is all about, and so forth. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I think whatever you've put down what the population is, forget that, because it's absolutely out of the water. It is it is just going to be ridiculous when things start to happen and people start really recalling a lot more than they should do. Right. Where can people go to get in touch with your book, which is, I have here, it's quite heavy and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's got if you love hardbacks, it's got a beautiful feel to it.
Well, you can get outoftimebook.info. Outoftimebook.info.
I will put that on the link as
or
well.
Go to Amazon and Google Out of Time Steve Aspin, and you'll see the cover, the white cover with a fractal image on it. Yeah.
Racy, if you can hear us, how's Congress going? He's busy on it. Right. Okay.
Oh, it's earlier in the day there. We're
very typical bureaucracy work.
Is it, babe? Well, okay. Well, I'm just it's less exciting as watching Mr. Trump, but yeah, I get it. Listen.
Far less. It's more like watching curling.
Curling.
God. Okay, no, we call it don't we call it bowls here or curling?
What do you know about curling? No, curling is what you do on ice generally. With big stones that you skate on the ice. Yeah.
Oh right, okay.
And somebody stands in front of it.
I do like watching it though.
Somebody stands in front with a brush, brushing the ice.
That's right. That's right. Yes,
that's curling.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I should imagine.
Look here.
Not the most exciting sport.
Oh, well, listen, I was going to put the other one. Of us back in Leeds, which was in 2011, but I didn't think I should, Steve. So I just thought that's myself, your lovely wife, Janice, and yourself. That's us.
Wow.
In Hull. No, Hull. Yeah, Hull. Not that long ago, was it?
So that's one of your photographs from your camera, yeah?
Well, yes, it is. Yeah, I say that because my other one broke, so I had to take another camera with me. But yeah, didn't I send that one to you?
No.
Oh, okay. I shall send that one to you. Yeah, put that on the hall of shame of us all. Right, listen, guys. I would like to say a big thank you to Steve Aspin for coming back on. And we are going to be doing a part 3 because there is absolutely a great debate that we are going to be doing that he did with Chris French. And we know that we want to bring in Chris French to the scene at some point anyway, being a skeptic. Do
you want to have him on as a guest?
I bloody well do too, right? I do. Yeah. And yeah, totally. I went on this morning, the TV show, and he was there. I was with Gary Hesseltine and him. So I've tried to be eaten alive by him. It's like, no, thank you very much. And the same with yourself. So we are going to be doing a part 3 with you, Steve, and you're going to talk to us about the university where you both debated. So thank you ever so much, guys, for being on the show, and thank you ever so much, Steve, for being on the show on The Naked Truth. And I will see you soon, and tomorrow's guest will be a surprise. All right, take it easy, guys. Bye from me. Bye from Steve.
Good night. Bye.